Hello and welcome to the Embrace Your Destiny podcast. My name is Sandra Dawes and I'm your host. And if you're unfamiliar with the podcast, the Embrace Your Destiny podcast is all about sharing the stories of women who have gone through a challenging time in their journey. And they're sharing their experiences, how they overcame it, the lessons they learned, and sharing advice that they would give to anybody going through something similar in their own life. And today's guest is Bunmi Akinnusotu, and she is a first-generation American who spent countless hours listening to her Nigerian relatives argue and debate about world politics. Though born and raised in the rebel state of Rhode Island, the idea of a world outside America has always been a part of her consciousness and is the motivation behind her podcast, What in the World? She's got lots of degrees, worked for amazing organizations, and smiles at a dope Excel spreadsheet. I love that. Bunmi is a recovering collegiate volleyball player, the world's biggest Nina Simone fan, and still has a love affair with Chicago. While she's busy trying to become America's first Nigerian-American Ambassador, she works at a small international affairs nonprofit in Washington, D.C. So welcome, Bunmi.
Thank you so much, Sandra, to be here, and thanks for the fun introduction. Sounds different when somebody else is saying it.
So, Bunmi, why don't you share with me the journey that you want to talk about with our listeners today?
Sure. So the journey I would like to share is one that I think, or that I know a lot of people at some point in their life will experience or have experienced, and the journey is being unemployed and trying to get a job, and the experience of not only applying to jobs, but the interview process and dealing with the rejection and the unique mental, social, psychological, emotional impact experience that you have trying to find a job. And for me, this was the time. I had been unemployed for more than 6 months. And so, it definitely changed my perspective on life, brought life, just things about that I didn't even know.
Yeah. The first time that I became unemployed, I was in a job that I didn't even like and I wanted out, but I felt like it was almost like a relationship where you want to break up on your own terms. And so when I got let go, I was so heartbroken. But again, I think it was more an ego thing than anything else because
Absolutely.
I couldn't imagine that they didn't want me.
We didn't like you anyway.
Right, but yeah, it was totally one of those types of situations.
Yeah, my situation was slanted. I don't know how if I were in your, if that happened to me, I think I'd be devastated. But my issue, I knew my job was going to end because I was a political appointee in the Obama administration. So you take the job knowing that there's a date, because fortunately, America is a democracy and elections every 4 years. There's a cap as to how many years the president can be in office, which is 2. So I came in at the tail end of the administration, knowing full well that January 21st, 2017 would be my last day. I think for me, the shock came from elements that were just outside of my control, right? Like, I think given the political environment of the United States, the election of the current president, I think that that election, just the system, the country, in ways that people didn't even realize it would occur, like the job market, companies, nonprofits, everybody just was so unsure about what was going to happen with the government. And because government is so tied to so much of what we do, even if you're nonpartisan, or if you don't receive government, you're in many ways is linked to government way, be it through regulations or something. So for me, the shock came, it was like a double shock. It was shock of the election results, and then the shock of the system, the country, trying to understand what just what happened.
Right. Well, yeah, we were going through that here, and we are not American, so I can't imagine what it was like to to experience it firsthand.
Yeah, it was. We'll have to do the show. I think there's a podcast that's out, that an idea that somebody should take on, which is just like the psychological and emotional trauma of America after the election. At least here in Washington, where 99 or 98% of the residents voted for Hillary Clinton. So the emotional trauma that came with the election, really to live in DC and experience it is one thing. Then the other thing for me, I worked in the Obama administration, and everything I and my colleagues had worked hard on was in jeopardy. And it just and then part of just leaving the institution, knowing that you're leaving your hardworking colleagues behind. You're walking into this world that's not what you planned for it to look like. Really, just it's amplified, I think, the experience that I had looking for work.
Right. And how was that job hunt?
Well, I'll just say in context, the summer before the election, the White House was very supportive of all the political appointees and making sure that we felt comfortable going back out to the job market, particularly for those of us who are not, senior ranking officials or, super duper connected. The White House had a lot of programming. I mean, just amazing speakers outside coming in to just talk to us about things like talk about your experience working for the president, talk about the work that you, because sometimes it's very difficult to translate government work into private sector work or nonprofit work. So I feel like we've given a lot of tools and support to prepare us. And so I would say that the only thing for me, I think I sort of drank the Kool-Aid about, you work for the Obama administration, so you'll be fine. You'll be good. You find something, that's a plus. And I'm not that it isn't. I totally agree that it was an honor. And every time somebody looks at my resume, they're totally impressed. But just given the context or the situation that occurred with the election, so let me just I'll answer the question and I'll link it up into this context just in a second. So you can imagine after November, so you had people who were working for Hillary who would have normally gone into the Hillary administration, now they're jobless. You had the people who were hoping for Bernie Sanders to become the Democrat president. The folks who worked for him on his campaign, they were still looking for jobs. And then now you have the Obama appointees who are coming out, thousands of people coming out who are obvious. None of us stayed, obviously, but into the next administration, unless there was some special circumstance. But you have those three groups of people all out looking for a job.
Right.
Many of them in the DC market, because that's sort of like the natural thing to do, particularly if you've been in DC for a while. For many, the natural thing to do is to stay in DC. So a lot of people stayed. There aren't that many jobs in DC.
Right.
So when so to answer your question, when I came out, the the odds were just stacked up against me, because I was competing with people who were on the Hillary campaign, the Bernie campaign, who had deep connections with the Obama administration. So we're all out here hustling for whatever opportunity. And yes, some people left DC, many people left DC, folks that I know. And sadly, a lot of people ended up home back to their hometown because they just couldn't find anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that. When your heart is set on doing public service or working in DC, it can be, it can feel like a setback. So a lot of people went home. Other people, when I started, were still looking. So the experience, to keep it very short, it was hard.
Right.
It was hard because I was just competing with amazing, amazing people, limited number of jobs. And I'll talk about some of the lessons that I, learned about networking, that really ran through for me, in the end.
So how emotionally and mentally, how was that dealing with the challenge of competing in a very competitive market for a job?
I would say it was the hardest thing next to experienced death early in my 20s, a significant death of someone I really loved. And I would say the mental, not to say that I died during this experience during my job search, I would say they were equivalent in that it just felt like nothing was in my control, and it felt like that I could do to make things better, and everything felt like no matter what I did, I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't able to connect with people. I felt like there was something wrong with me, that I was the one who was, deficient.
Right. And that's why you weren't getting the jobs.
And that's why I wasn't getting the job. And we experienced something traumatic like death, at least for me, things I thought of was like, I'm not worthy of life. Or, because here's this good person died. And you feel like, you're alone. Like you feel like you're not worthy to live because, here's this amazing person should be living.
Right. And they were taken away.
And they're taken away. And so I went through this whole guilt phase. I went through this whole low self-esteem period. It was the same with my job search. Like I saw other people getting jobs, and I was like, okay, I know this person is a bunch of bullshit. Like, how the hell did, or somebody who was really good, and I'd be like, dang, like, there's no way I could have even landed that job. Or like, I applied for a job, like, I know, now I understand why they chose this person, right? So always at the end of it, going back to something that was lost in me or limiting in myself, which is totally not healthy. And I think that came out, that loss of confidence came out in my interviews, even when I tried early on, I would say it came out probably very clearly during my interviews, which probably isn't good for me either.
No, and I could totally relate to that, because I remember after getting let go from that job, wanting so desperately to find another job and feeling, on reflection, not at the time, that my desperation was probably just like oozing out of my pores. Like, that they could smell it on me.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
And so that's why, I was getting a lot of, you're a great candidate and we really like you, but you know what I mean? And it's like, I'd rather you just say, you weren't the one, as opposed to trying to soften the blow by telling me how amazing I am. But, because what they say about that but is that it sort of negates everything that you just said. So yeah, I get it. And it is frustrating because, you know, you have many degrees and you didn't go through all of that to not be able to get a job. Because I don't know about you, but I know growing up, my parents hammered that into me that, you know, not going to university, not getting the degree was not an option, because that's the only way you're going to get a job. That's the only way you are going to succeed, especially as a woman of color. So, you know, to be out there in the real world looking for a job and not getting it with the letters, but, you know, backing you up. It's like, well, what the heck is going on here?
What because the heck is, multiple times. And you're so right about being a woman of color. I mean, I'll first say that, you know, like my family are immigrants. And so my entire life, you know, my parents worked. My mom always had a job. My dad has always had a job. From a very hardworking family. And there's this idea of, you know, quote unquote, independent Black woman. And I think it's a total myth. It's like, no, I was raised to be a responsible adult.
Right.
A responsible adult, to me, from what I've seen with family and people around me, keeps a job.
Yes.
A responsible adult pays her bills.
Yep.
Or his bills. A responsible adult tries to find ways to give back to their community, or to give back to others, or to do something that's greater than themselves. Like, those are things that my entire life I strive to do, and up until last year thought that I was in control of. Now, the flip side with this idea that parents raised us on is that it doesn't prepare you for those things that are not in your control. Like, obviously, I did not control the election results.
Right.
I did not control the job market. I did not control, you know, all of the places that I interviewed and their confusion about what was happening in the country. So I think the one realization that I had in this process was, you know, we're taught that if you do B, C, and D, you know, these things will occur. And it was made very clear to me last year that as hardworking as I am, as degrees as you can have, many people, you know, you can do the formula correctly, but you're still not in control of everything that happens to you.
No, because you can do all those things and the results are not what you expect them to be.
Are totally not what you expected. Absolutely. And in fact, it might be the complete 180 degrees of what you imagined, which, you know, which ended up being my case. And another thing you said that was interesting. So if I ever, actually, I'm in a position now where I do hiring, but I'm much more sensitive to people during the interview process because of my experience. And one of the things that, I mean, this is I think, wrong way to reject someone. There was one instance where I had gone on, I think, 4 interviews, like 4 rounds, like multiple each round. I did a writing sample. I did a project. I did all of these things. I had been referred by a friend, like multiple friends. And I thought I was in the door. Actually, one of their interviews, a gentleman had started to talk to me about like just like work life project that I could be working on. It's kind of like dating, right? Like he sort of like totally led me to believe that like I was in the door,
right.
Like I won.
You got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I got it. And I left the interview and it wasn't even like my dream position. Like it would have just been a good position for now, entry, but it was still, you know, it was what it was. So I'll never forget the night that I learned that I wasn't selected. I was volunteering and I received a phone call at like 7:30 at nighttime. And I recognized the 202 number. So I thought maybe it was a friend or something. It was like the head of the department. And she called to basically reject me. Which was, I had never heard of, like, no one had ever called me.
Right, a personal rejection. Awesome.
A personal rejection, which when I hung up, I was so, like, I cried. I was so mad. Like, how dare she call me? I don't know if she would have sent an email, if that would have been any better. But her words were actually very kind. She, I know you did a lot of work for us. I want you to know that we decided to go with one, internally, who had a little bit more XX experience. And it was something like, we don't want this the last time we hear from you, that whole spiel.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I cursed in my head. I was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate you calling. And so my friend will remind me, like, look, you definitely made an impact. So much that she called you, so don't feel so bad about it. But still, it was like, she called to reject me.
Right, yeah. It wasn't about the phone call. It was about what she said on the phone call. Yeah.
I thought she was willing to make an offer. That's the stuff you usually do. You call to make an offer. I was totally excited when she said her name, and I was, oh, yes, this is the one.
Right, doing mini celebrations in your head and everything.
Already planning my party in my head, like, in the 5 seconds that she was talking to me. And then she was like, no, I guess all that to say, when you were talking about the but part.
Yeah.
It hits you in ways that you're just like, why?
Yeah.
Who is this other person that you chose?
Let's have a knockdown drag out and see who's the better candidate.
Basically, I had an experience, actually, the very last position the second to last position that I applied for before I got my current role. Similar thing. I had like 5 rounds of interviews, 3 people at each interview, and had all these hoops to jump through. I had multiple people inside. Just everything. Again, ducks lined up, and this one was not a phone call, but it was. They had said when I submitted my final thing to them, like, oh, we'll get back to you in a week. And of course, every single day, every single minute, you're like counting, and you can't wait for that day to get there. And you don't see anything in your inbox on the 5th day, and you're like,
refresh.
Like triple refresh, and you're checking, make sure your email works,
right.
You're checking your phone for random texts, like everything.
Sending test emails to yourself. I've done it. Yeah.
I thought I was the only one who did that. All of it. Check your spam box. You're checking everything. And so when like 10th day rolled around, I told the HR person, like, hey, I hadn't heard from anybody. Sends the email. And this, like, it was like one of those automated generated messages. And it's like, oh, thank you for your application. We blah, 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 blah. We decided to go with somebody else. I was like, oh, no. I done did all of this. You are getting a personal email. So I sent her an email personal. I was like, hey, I just got to be diplomatic. And so I was like, hey, I really enjoy meeting with the staff and getting to learn more about the company. And I'm always looking for ways to improve my interviewing skills and how I tell my story. Is there anything that you can share about my experience or about the process so that I can improve? And she sent back the message, like, basically, I was the out of the box candidate. And that was it.
Oh, wow. So she didn't want to elaborate or give you anything constructive that...
Basically, I was an experiment. That's what I ended up concluding, because she didn't elaborate. So I just concluded that I was an experiment. maybe, the little black girl was, or maybe trying to pad this diversity. I don't know. But like, and I went into seclusion for like 5 days. I didn't check email. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't leave my apartment. The only thing I was doing was getting out of the bed to go pee.
Right.
Come back.
The necessities.
And the necessity base, and drink some water here and there. I wasn't eating. And I was like, I don't know what else to do. And yeah, that one was the one that hurt. I had hit, by that point, I was like December. So I had hit a wall. I was like, I don't really know what else
to do.
Yeah.
What would you say was your, the biggest lesson from this experience?
The biggest is hard. I would say the most important for me personally is to remind myself, or to what I've been telling myself. I'm still recovering over the confidence thing, right? So I would say I've learned it's not me. And I need to make sure that no matter what the reaction is, whether it's a job, whether it's a date, or something that I wanted that I didn't get, it's not me. It's no reflection of who I am, and what I'm about, and my calling in life. And I feel like I believe in God, and I feel like those things that are not in our control are in control by God, or God is controlling those things. And so you just have to trust. Faith is all about trusting those things you can't see. That's the basic foundation premise of anybody who is a believer, is that those things you can't see, you have to trust that there is a higher power managing those things, the betterment of yourself and for all of us in the world. And so it is unfair and unhealthy to blame myself, to beat myself up for stuff that I can't control. And that's been a healing process, a journey still to this day for me. And I also think as women of color, in particular, people of color, I think because of the nature of the world, the way people treat people of color, I think it's easy for us to automatically default to it's because I was Black.
Right.
Or it's because they have a funny name. Or it's because, I don't have blonde blue eyes. That is that is usually the default. But what I learned was we can't do that. We can't. I'm not saying that those things don't happen. Certainly do. But for example, I can't change my skin. I will not change my name. I cannot my hair blonde, and I will not wear blue contacts. Right? I cannot change these about me. So it is up to the world to adjust to me.
Right.
Not me adjust to the world. So my greatest lesson is to trust in who I am, that the right person will see me for who I am. The HR person, the manager, whoever, I will come across those people who are a little bit more advanced in their thinking.
Right.
and can see me for who I am. Because at the end of the day, I don't actually want to work with somebody who automatically thinks that I'm dumb or I'm not cool because my name is Sarah Smith,
right.
Which is actually a person. Love you, Sarah. But anyway, but you get what I'm saying. I think the lesson for people of color in particular, or anybody who fit the white male Western boxes, is to do not ever conform. Do not yourself down. Not do the shucking and jive and dance to make people think that you're capable. Who you are, and the right employer will see that, and those people you want to work for. You don't want to work for them who live in their thinking.
Absolutely. And I think for me, the biggest lesson in everything that I've been through is that everything happens for a reason. And you
Yeah.
might not see that when you're in it because you want what you want, but these things are happening for you, not to you. And I think that that's been something that I have to remind myself of constantly, is that I'm not being punished for something because it didn't happen. It's not, I didn't get the job or I didn't get the client or whatever because I'm a bad person or because,
Yeah.
I did something really stupid when I was 6 years old. It's because it just wasn't meant to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that understanding that and accepting that is huge, and that you can have goals, you can have dreams, you can have desires, but you're not in control of how those things happen. Yes, you can
Absolutely.
take action on your goals, you can do things, you can meditate, you can pray, you can do all these things, but
Yeah.
the thing is that you have to focus on the end goal and not be so focused on how that's going to happen, because the how is what you have to just put your faith in, is that it's going to reveal itself, it's going to come, but you cannot control everything. And that's
No.
been such a huge thing for me. And I go to networking events and introduce myself as a recovering control freak and excuse maker, because the struggle is real. And while I can say logically that I realize that I'm not in control of everything, I still struggle with that sometimes, because,
Yeah. Yeah.
again, you want what you want, and you can want something so bad and you think that you know how it's supposed to unfold, and you just have to humble yourself and realize that you really don't.
Yeah, I love that. That's so spot on, particularly about humbling yourself. I, particularly as like aspiring, leading, driven women. Um, I was also particularly here in DC, where everyone is like, I say DC is like the capital of valedictorian, right? Everybody here is super accomplished, went to all the great schools. They were the overachiever in high school, right? And so we all descend upon DC. So it's very easy to a little cocky. And when things don't go your way, I've seen it. People get upset, or they do the temper tantrum thing. We're adults, so people don't like go around doing crazy things. But you can tell when people are really disappointed that they didn't get a fellowship, or they didn't get the job, or they didn't get the connection, or whatever it is. So humility is definitely important. And experience, I don't think I'm an overly confident person, but I'll admit that working for the Obama administration definitely made me feel like I had really done a good job. Like I had an opportunity of a lifetime. And so I was humbled when I had to pick up a job working, someone might call like a blue collar job. And, you know, my friends, if anybody wants to know like what my life has been like, ask my bestest friends. They'll tell you everything that I like had gone through. But I ended up picking up. I won't say the name of the place because it's a government agency. But I ended up working for a government agency just to like keep the bills paid and to eat, right? And this job was not glamorous. It was not glamorous at all. It was God send, because without it, I would not have been able to pay my rent, would not have been able to eat. And in a way that I got it was a godsend, but the job humbled me. And it was a frustrating experience to do, because your skills aren't being utilized in the way that they should be utilized. You're having to deal with like really crappy people. I had a schedule that was the complete opposite. So my normal schedule was like 9 to 5 when I was working, regular jobs, or not regular jobs, but working in the administration job before that, 9 to 5, right? This was a job where I was working 3 p.m. until midnight.
Oh, wow.
And I never had a job those hours. And the people were amazing. Like my coworkers, they were hilarious, they were great. But I was humbled every single day by who I was around and just having to go through this sort of like survival. I did that like 5 months, and probably, yeah, 5 months. And I thank God every day, as horrible, not horrible, as challenging it was. I thank God every day that I had that opportunity, because again, was what kept my lights on, and it's what allowed me to continue to like go on interviews during the daytime,
Right.
and then in the afternoon went to this job, and I sat all day. I was literally sitting at a desk on the phone all day, all night. I would come out at night, and I today don't know if it is God. Like, I had no money in the bank, but I had to Uber home every night because the bus system and the train system stopped running in DC at night. So by the time I got out of work, I had like maybe 5 minutes to get to the train station, and this was not going to happen. So I somehow was able to afford Uber and Lyft to go home in the evenings, and like still able to pay my rent,
Right.
and eat, right? So it was a very mixed, that experience humbled me, but it just, to me, as someone who believes in God, it just showed me the power of God, and the importance of just having faith.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially when you're going through challenging times, is to believe that it's all going to work out.
It's all going to work
Yeah.
out. It's all going to work out. And if you can just be gentle with yourself, just be gentle with yourself, and be gentle and kind to others as well. I think with the job experience, I think I had a few moments last year where I probably snapped like on my mom, or I got frustrated with friends or something, frustrated at myself. It's, I think, important to be good to yourself. Don't be so selfish, job experience, that you forget to be kind to others.
Yeah. Compassion is so important.
Compassion is, I believe things come back to you. So what you put out there for others will in turn come back to you. So if you're compassionate with others, people will be compassionate with you.
Bunmi, what would you say what advice would you give to somebody who's going through their own job hunt right now?
Job hunt. Yeah, that. It's really hard, because I guess it would also depend on, to a degree, the industry, maybe the market, your skill set.
But I guess more so from like a mindset perspective.
Mindset. Yeah, from a mindset perspective, my advice would be to, first, like we were talking about, stay humble. Second is, don't get down on yourself. Don't beat yourself up when you lose rejection or things don't go your way. Take a break. Oh my God. Like, there was a point I was going on coffees like almost every day. It gets expensive, one, because you've got to find the money to like get to meet this thing. Then you pay for your coffee, or hopefully they're nice enough and they pay for you. But more than likely you're paying yourself. But so it's draining. So like, take a break. You also need time for the market catch up, because if you're in front of your computer every single day, applying online, sending emails, trying to set up, informational interviews, it's like you just need the time. The youth just needs time to catch up to you, because there's so many jobs out there that you're going to apply for.
Yeah.
There's only jobs you're going to see, and people email them. They have lots. They're working. So they may not get back to you right away.
It's bigger than you.
It's bigger than you. It's bigger than you. We're on our own, time schedule when we're unemployed
Yeah.
because we're so anxious to land. But the world is not looking for a job. You are. So
Right. Yeah.
you just might need to take a break and just allow things, do what they do. And it's just good for yourself to just, use that break time maybe to go for a walk or exercise if you can, or just like do things not related to job search. I started my podcast.
Right.
I started my podcast and my program while I was unemployed. And who would have thought, right? And during that time, I was able to volunteer at the radio station. And because I had all this free time, I was able to learn how to edit. I was able to talk with other radio program producers and practice interviewing and all of these things that you go through creating a program and podcast. I did while I was unemployed, so it took my mind off of the rejection and it took my mind off of just being unemployed. So someone could say, well, you need money to do all those things. Yeah, but you find the money. You find a way.
Yeah.
I'm paying down my credit card debt. I'm paying down my credit card debt right now. So I say take a break. And then I would definitely say if you've been good people, hopefully you have a network of just strong friends who can cry with you, who can pray with you, who can encourage you when you don't get out of the bed because you've been beaten down by the rejection. I got this job that I'm in now because after that last rejection, I went into like my seclusion mode, and during that time, I wasn't checking email. But a friend of mine emailed me a job during my secluded period, and she was like, "I know that you're really distraught about this. I want you to take your time and recover. When you're ready, there's a position for you. I know the executive director. She's fantastic. And I want you to apply." And, when I came out of my isolation, I saw the email, and the first thing was like, F that. Like, I know that they pay me. I don't want to work for a small nonprofit organization because I've seen how that works, and I'm just not built. So I thought, and in mind, I still had this vision of the type of job that I wanted to be working in, and this was the complete opposite in some ways. I obviously I applied, I got the job, and but without her sort of tagging me and just prodding me a little bit, I don't think I would have applied at all.
Right. Yeah. I think having a strong support system is so important because we can't get through this journey called life by ourselves. As much as we want to be, as you said, independent and everything else, I think that we need that support system, especially when you're going through those challenging times in life. You need those people that you can lean on, those people who can give you that kick in the backside when you need to get your stuff together and be there to be that shoulder to cry on when you need it. I think that that's so important.
Yeah. Lots of shoulders are recovering from my crying. Lots of crying. And one thing that I learned in this that still blows my mind till this day. This lesson had never been taught to me by anyone, but I learned it in this process, and I saw action through another friend. So I learned is do not tell anyone that you're applying for a job, right? And the short explanation is, when people know you're unemployed, they're like, "Oh, so how's the job search going?" What I was doing is saying, "Oh, I've applied to here. I applied to this position, and I had 5 interviews. to all the detail.
Right.
All the unnecessary detail. And I do so innocently, not think, and I don't think anybody has like ill will towards me at all. But I've learned that it's better to keep your actions on the low, details of your actions on the low. I don't know what it is, but when you say it out loud, I don't know if it's the devil. I don't know what. I don't know if there's some negative energy in the universe. I don't know what it is, but I believe that there's something out there that will work actively to stop those things from happening. And I tell you, this last job was the only job, every role, it was the only job where I had not told
anybody. Yeah.
Anybody. Other than the friend who like referred me to the position. And I think my mom, because my mom kept asking me like what I was going to do.
Right. How's that job hunt going?
Exactly. I didn't tell anybody until after I had accepted the offer.
Yeah.
And now I've seen this happen with other people where all of a sudden you just hear like you're saying, "Oh, I'm working at such and such a place." It's like, "Oh, I had no idea they were on the job hunt." Like I had no idea.
Right.
So I've decided going forward. I don't know if it's a superstitious thing. I don't know, but I've just decided that going forward, I'm just going to keep my stuff on the low.
Keep it to yourself. Yeah.
Keep it to myself and not verbalize it out the universe, because don't know what energy is going to come along to prevent that thing happening. I know that sounds very, very like old school witch tale type of thing, but I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I'm going with it from now on.
Yeah, I do think that there's something to that, because I think you have to be very protective of your goals, and that they're not something that you need to share with everyone, that you need to be very selective about who you tell your deepest desires to. And I think that that's something that I've definitely learned as well, because sometimes I know for me, when I decided that I was going to start a coaching practice, when I first started to tell people, and this is when I learned that you shouldn't tell people, not everybody needs to know, it's because you get a lot of questions, and you get a lot of people who question your choices and don't understand what you're doing because it's not something that they personally would do. And so if you're not truly convicted in what you're pursuing and you have all these people questioning you, it can make you question yourself and make you question whether or not this is something that you should really be trying to do, even though there's something in your heart telling you that this is the thing that's going to, bring us that fulfillment and whatever it is that you're looking for. So yeah, I get it that you have to be very, very careful, because not everybody's going to get it, and they don't have to get it. I think that's another lesson that I've learned, is that, you can have dreams and goals and aspirations, and not everybody's going to understand it, and that's okay. It's totally okay.
Absolutely. It's totally okay.
It's totally okay. And I think that there was a time where I'm like, but you're my friend or you're my family. You should get it and be okay with it and be on board with it. And yeah, it's just really about, I think for me, even when I was doing the job hunt, is managing my expectations and not being like, okay, I have to get this job. This is the job for me. It's the perfect job and there's no other job like it, so I have to get it. And then being so devastated when it didn't happen, is to be like, you know what? If it's the job for me, then it's the job for me. And if I don't get it, then it means that there's something else better. And I mean, when people would tell me that when I wasn't getting the job, I didn't want to hear it. Oh, it means that there's something better out there for you. It's like, yeah, okay. How much longer do I have to wait for this something better to come around? Because
totally.
I needed it like last week, but
like last week, absolutely.
But it's just, but it's all part of the journey, as you say. And I think that your advice of being kind to yourself is so great, because I think that when we are going through difficult times, it's so easy to beat ourselves up. But I think that you have to realize that we're on a journey, and you have to be patient with yourself as you're learning what you need to learn to get through this journey, and be patient with the journey itself, because it's not going to happen when you want it to happen. It's going to happen when it's meant to happen.
Yep, absolutely. We say, God's time is the best time.
Right.
And, that's the truth. If you're not a believer, you say it's just not your time. And the part of adulting, just part of growing older, is just being okay with that.
Yes.
That your time is not your time. And I tell this with my mom, who I love dearly. There are members of my family who are looking for me to get married and have children. And I'm like, yeah, I could go and get married. I could do that, like right now. I could go date one and impregnate myself like right now. But no, one, and two, it's just not the time. I can't imagine being unemployed and having a child.
Right.
There's probably a whole nother show you could do about that, but I was just trying to manage myself. I was eating, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I could not do that for a child.
Right.
And pay for childcare or kid to the doctor if they're sick. We're fortunate to live in the United States, where even as crazy as things are, we have some basic safety nets like Medicare, Medicaid, TANF, all these programs to help with people who need. But it's very hard. And I'm thankful that it was just me that I worry about. And so timing is everything. I probably would be worse off if I had kids, because then I'd feel desperate to take anything.
Yes.
And I'd make myself miserable, and I'd be making my household miserable and my kid miserable,
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a fan or a proponent of just respecting time and let time do its and my grip on life is definitely a lot looser than it was before. I guess that's another piece of advice is, when you hold on to something so tight, nothing can get in.
No, years ago, I think when I first started my journey on this whole personal development stuff, I remember I had a CD, and I can't remember if it was a recording of a conference, and it was Louise Hay, Carolyn Mace, and Susan Jeffers. And I don't know who said it, but she talked about, and I think it was Carolyn Mace, and she talked about wearing life as a loose garment.
Oh, I love that.
And
I love that.
And same here. And I think that's why it's stuck in my head, because I think it's been over a decade since I listened to that CD. But when she said that, I was like, oh, you know what? That's and visually you get it. And we've all worn something that's, a size too tight or something like that. And note how uncomfortable that is. So when she said, wear life like a loose garment, I'm like, yes, who wants to wear life like this skin tight thing that makes me feel like I need to lose 5 pounds? Let's treat it like something that's flowing and easy and comfortable, and not something that's constrictive. And
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would say everybody has a garment. And if you imagine the garment as your purpose, right? Everybody has a purpose. Everybody is going to have series of things that they're just destined to wear or do. In this case, the example of the garment. And I feel like, what happens is if we hold on to this purpose tightly, it no longer feels like you can cherish and hold. Like it doesn't feel special. It feels like a chore,
a burden,
a burden, right? Like the jeans. It might have been. It's probably the pair of jeans that you love, right? You love this thing so much, but every time you wear it, you've got to lay on your back, your stomach, You've got to get your partner to help you like put your pants on. So it it no longer feels like the favorite pair of jeans that you once wore. Feels like a death sentence every time you wear.
You're looking at those jeans and it's like, I don't even want to do this anymore.
I don't even want to do that anymore, right? So if we treat our purpose that way, you can imagine. I think that's why so many people end up giving up in life, is because the thing that they're destined to do, they've held on to it so tightly that it becomes more of a burden than it is a blessing. And I that for me, my purpose, I feel like my purpose is to sort of maintain a presence in the world as far as foreign politics and foreign policy, and bringing people together who normally wouldn't be together, and really, I feel like my purpose is like to bring experiences to people. And I knew that I wanted some element of that in my job or in life, or like wherever I landed. And I think that if I had held on so tightly, like I only want to be a foreign service officer, I only want to work at, this international think tank. If I had held on to that so tight, I think I would have missed the blessing in the role that I have now, which I have an amazing coworker. I have although I work like a dog, I have actually great flexibility where I can work. So I can work from home. I can host working space. I can take a break. The two of us who are full time. So if I just need like a timeout, I can be like, hey, timeout. I'm going to be offline for a few hours, right? Like that is, I've deemed just like a more flexible work life than I would have if I'd gone to work, at a government agency or at a bigger organization. So I left some flexibility with my job search and with purpose. So it feels a little easier to wear it feels a little easier to go into work, on days that are tough, because I have some flexibility. And I didn't hold on so tight to like the vision that I had for myself.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to think about when you're, whether it's a job hunt or any aspect of your life, really, relationships, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I commend you. I mean, you talked about like your switch to like this space, if I understand it. And people don't understand like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And why. And for you, people like me, like others, it takes courage to pursue that which is in your heart. And I think, like you said, you don't owe an explanation to anybody. You don't need to explain the garment you're wearing to anybody. Like you see people out here wearing like the most outlandish outfits, and you're like, who told you to put that together? I feel that's your purpose and the thing that you do in your life. You don't owe an explanation to anyone, and it takes courage to walk in that weird looking outfit or to wear that interesting garment or scarf or whatever. And it takes courage to talk to people about what is on your heart, even if you're not completely sure exactly how the thing should look. It takes courage. It takes courage to seek that thing. And I would just say for anybody who's looking, to be brave at all times, to be brave enough to stand in what you know about what you want for your life, and but also just be flexible and enjoy the journey as you mentioned.
Yeah. Bunmi, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, and all the wisdom that you've gained from the experience. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been quite therapeutic, I'll say. I haven't had a chance yet to fully experience, but this is probably the first time. I think for people who know me, who are listening, I don't think they knew fully the extent of what I was going through. And I haven't even said every single thing, but I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be vulnerable in this way. I don't normally talk about my feelings with people, unless it's my therapist or my friends. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity.
Well, then I'm grateful that you felt comfortable to share with me.
Problem. You have a great show, and I can't wait to listen. I can't wait to, you know, hear what other people are experiencing as well.
Yeah, and so if you're on the road walking your dog or exercising at the gym and you want to find out more about Bunmi and her podcast, you can check that out in the show notes and and learn more about her and what she's all about. And so that is it for today. Have an awesome week, guys, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you. Take care.